Here's lesson 4 in the exponents unit. Today we're going to discover what the power rule is. So again, like we've done in the past, I'd like you to make sense of certain unsimplified expressions by filling in the table, and you're going to discover a rule, the power rule, by the end of it. So notice in this first one that we have 4 to the 7th raised to the 5th power. So you could write that in expanded form by writing 4 to the 7th times itself 5 times. And if you use that shortcut here and add all these exponents together, you get 4 to the 35th. I'd like you to fill in the remainder of the table to discover the power rule. Okay, hit pause, the space bar now. Alright, here's all of the table filled in, except for the last row there. We'll do that together. In this x to the 5th to the 100, this guy here, I wasn't going to ask you to write out 100 x to the 5ths, but if you could imagine what that would look like, there would be 500 x's then all multiplied together. So the pattern here you should be discovering is that you can just multiply the powers together when you have this parentheses. This is called the power rule. So we'll do the same thing here, and so the power rule states that x to the 8th power raised to the b power is just going to be the same as x to the a times b power. Alright, let's move along. Here we'll practice simplifying using that power rule. So oftentimes students get this confused in number 1 that this is like somehow 5 and a like combined together like solidly, but it's actually multiplication in the middle, right? So it really kind of looks like this. And if you were to expand this is not using the power rule, it would look like this. And you can see that we have 3 5s multiplied together and 3 a's multiplied together. So this would be 125a cubed. Using the power rule instead to do this would be to recognize that there is an exponent of 1 on each the 5 and the a, and both of them are going to get multiplied by that 3. So we would do this 1 times the 3, so that's 5 to the 3rd power, and then 1 times the 3 is also then a to the 3rd power. And you could still simplify this and get that same thing, 125a cubed. So that would be using the power rule. It's kind of that shortcut. Alright, I'll do one more as an example, and then you can practice some. Alright, so for number 2, remember that it's going to be an exponent of 1 in here if you don't see an exponent. So using the power rule, we just multiply each of those exponents by the 3. So this would be the same as 5 to the 1 times 3 power times a to the 1 times 3 power and b to the 1 times 3 power. Right, so it would be 5 cubed, a to the 3rd, b to the 3rd, which would be just the same thing as 125 times a cubed, b cubed. Alright, you can pause the video and practice. I'm not going to reveal. Alright, so then there's some for you to practice. We're going to skip on to the other side of the notes so you can see one more example, this time dealing with fractions. So using the power rule here, well, we can discover how to use the power rule by expanding. So I'm going to actually write this out expanded. 5x cubed over 2 times 5 times x cubed over 2 times 5x cubed over 2 again. That was because of this 3. I did 3 of those multiplied together. And you'll notice that you still again have 3 5s multiplied together. You have 3 of the x cubes multiplied together. And then you have 3 of the 2's multiplied together. So really, to use the power rule, you're just going to put in these exponents again and multiply each of those exponents by that 3. So using the power rule, you would just do 5 and then 1 times 3, and then you do times x, which is then 3 times 3 in the exponent, and that's all over 2 to the 1 times 3. Right? And so then we can just simplify that. So this becomes 5 to the 3rd, x to the 9th, and 2 to the 3rd. But that still simplifies to 125 x to the 9th over 8. And 125 and 8 don't simplify. You could divide them and actually write this if you like, although I don't see it often. Alright, now you can go ahead and practice.